One, a Jersey girl with a no-nonsense, joyful persona. The other, a driven New Yorker who wasn't always a diva. By the time Mariah had released her first single, Vision of Love, in 1990, Whitney had already released 2 multi-platinum selling albums. Both Mariah and Whitney had been born into music. Mariah's mother was a Juilliard-educated opera singer, and Whitney's mother was Cissy Houston, 2-time Grammy Award winner. Her cousin was Dionne Warwick, and Aretha Franklin was practically an auntie to her. Both were just kids when they entered the music industry. At just 15, Whitney was already used to singing on stage with her mother. Then she was discovered by a photographer and ended up getting modelling work. She appeared on the front cover of 17 magazine. At 19, while performing in a nightclub, Whitney was discovered by Clive Davis. He ended up signing her on the spot. She performed for the first time on national TV on the Merv Griffin show, and it was a stunning performance. Immediately, people knew that she was going to be a star.
A world full of love.
Her self-titled album was released in 1985. It took 2 years to complete, working with the best producers and songwriters in the business. Whitney wasn't a songwriter, especially in the beginning. She did co-write a couple of songs over the years though. Whitney became a pop sensation almost immediately. The album climbed the charts. In 1986, she won a Grammy for Saving All My Love for You. Her second album was released in 1987. It went platinum several times over. I Wanna Dance With Somebody was one of her most iconic hits. Whitney would go on to become the only artist to have 7 consecutive #1 singles on Billboard. She was also the only artist to have 7 consecutive multi-platinum selling albums. When Whitney was on album number 2, that's when Mariah came along. She probably inspired Mariah while she herself was trying to break into the industry. When Whitney had released her first album, that's when Mariah had completed her demo tape that would be heard by Tommy Mottola the following year. Whitney would have been in her early 20s and Mariah just around 15 when Whitney blew up the charts. When Mariah released her debut album, it also went straight to #1, and she also seemingly became an overnight sensation too. The press and industry commentators must have had a case of déjà vu, as another singing sensation came on the scene. Whitney had a phenomenal voice, 1 in a million. So what were the chances of another singer coming along who also had a 1 in a million voice within the same era? Although they were quite different, to be fair, comparisons were made immediately. And in those days, there were no blogs, no social media. It was all in print and on TV. Drama and controversy sells papers and gets ratings. So that's what the press tried to drum up between the two. Mariah was complimentary towards Whitney though.
A lot of comparisons between you and Whitney Houston. Does that bother you that people sort of say, oh, you know, you're very similar? Does that worry you at all?
When you're new, you have to be compared to someone,
Sure.
you know? So, I mean, there are a lot worse people I could be compared to, and she's a superstar and a great vocalist. So.
And Mariah was being genuine and respectful as a newcomer because she does know how to throw shade. Remember when she was asked about Madonna?
I haven't paid attention to Madonna since I was in like 7th or 8th grade when she used to be popular, so I didn't...
And we know how she feels about J-Lo.
Ist mit J-Lo?
Die kenne ich nicht.
Ups.
Mariah went on to sell 15 million copies of her debut album, and Whitney released her third album around the same time. It sold 10 million copies, which is still phenomenal, but it was the comparisons with Mariah that stirred the pot. Was the younger, new singing sensation in town going to take Whitney's spot? You know, that sort of thing. Every time the press mentioned Mariah, they mentioned Whitney, and vice versa, as if one could not exist without the other. And you can tell it was kind of annoying Mariah, because this was her moment, and it was being overshadowed by the Whitney comparisons and the drama. Some even accused Mariah of mimicking Whitney, even though they had quite different sounds. The reality is they didn't know each other at all, so any reports of a feud was totally fabricated by the press. Whitney, no stranger to shade, appeared to throw some at Mariah. When asked what she thinks of Mariah, she said, "I don't think of her."
Last week we had Mariah Carey here in the studio.
You did? How is she doing?
Well, she was doing great.
Oh, great.
Yes.
It's great.
What I'm curious about, what do you think of her?
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her.
I think she was just trying to make the point that she doesn't think about Mariah every waking moment, like the press were making out she does. I don't think she was particularly fazed by Mariah, like they were implying. She had just sold 10 million albums, so I don't think she was worried. But when the crowd sort of cheered, she backpedaled a little bit because she realised they were taking it in a certain way. And that's when she brought it back to the music, saying that she believes Mariah is a good singer.
I don't think of her. Musically, what do I think of her?
Yes.
I think she's a good singer.
But it was taken as a clear sign that perhaps there was a beef between the two. And of course, more drama was drummed up when both artists released music within weeks of each other. Exhale, Shoop Shoop, was released in 1995. It reached a top spot and stayed at number 1 for 5 weeks. But it was knocked off the top spot by Mariah's song with Boyz II Men, One Sweet Day. It stayed at number 1 for 16 consecutive weeks. And Whitney was asked once again what she thought of Mariah by MTV. She said, "Maybe it's not what I think, it's what she thinks is more important." So what was the press comparing between the two of them? Let's take a look at their singing styles. Whitney had a 3-octave vocal range. Many assumed it was 5 octaves, probably because of the comparisons to Mariah. Her former vocal coach confirmed her 3-octave range, saying it spanned from B flat to C6. She has been described as a mezzo-soprano, although some claimed she was a spinto soprano. She was known for her incredible breath support, powerful resonant belts mixed with her head voice, and her mid to upper belts were well supported and healthy. She projected huge resonance with ease. Her low notes were also well supported, and her head voice has been described as resonant, piercing, full and fluid. Some of the challenges she faced vocally was her upper chest register notes could only be held for so long. Her voice could become shrill, approaching F sharp 5, and occasionally she was said to raise her larynx in the upper belts. And Mariah had a 5-octave range, going all the way up to G sharp 7. She has been described as a light lyric coloratura soprano, said to have a smaller voice size and weight, but with exceptional agility and fluidity. Although Mariah has always described herself as an alto, she has an unusually strong lower extension because she sings the whistle register. Many had her down for 7 octaves, but it's actually a 5-octave range. At her peak, her strengths were described as being able to go from a high octave belt to an airy whisper in an instant. She has been described as having the ability to pitch notes with incredible accuracy, singing in the register for long periods without vocal fatigue. Unparalleled register transitions, switching from chest to head to whistle, and even chest to whistle without so much as a pause. She can sing using a variety of techniques. Transitioning seamlessly from the chest voice to the whistle register is an exceptionally difficult technique, given that these two registers are not connected like the head and chest voices are. She can also create distinct words in this register, displaying her ease and relaxation as well. Her lower range was described as the weakest part of her voice, and her mid-range was said to be thick and slightly nasal. And she's also showcased an airy, light tone, almost a whisper. She is also able to use voice cracks with control to convey emotion. So at their peaks, they both had different facets to their voice range and singing styles and different abilities, both very impressive. In 1998, The Prince of Egypt was released. Both Mariah and Whitney were commissioned to sing When You Believe for the soundtrack, a first of its kind duet between the two of them. A duet between the two of them was history in the making, absolutely unprecedented, and fans didn't see it coming. To promote the project, they did a number of public appearances together, However, when the idea of working with Whitney was presented to Mariah, she did ask if Whitney was okay with it.
He was like, you know, would you like to do this duet with Whitney? And I was like, did she say? That was cool.
The opportunity for them to work together came at the height of the supposed rivalry. So the maker of the movie, Jeffrey Katzenberg, got the two of them together, presented the idea to them. And the song was recorded in 1998. And that's when the two of them stepped into the studio for the first time together. When You Believe is an inspirational song about hope and courage. So the two of them coming together was a symbol of friendship and unity. Mariah said, "It's sort of a message song. If we were ever going to come together on any kind of record, this is definitely the right one."
The coolest thing to me is that after all the drama and everybody making it like we had a rivalry, she was just really cool and we had a really good time in the studio. We had fun. And so if nothing else, it was a good experience in divaism, whatever, I don't know.
The press had even convinced them at one point that they were rivals. And Whitney told Oprah, "When we got together, it was like magic. We clicked. We laughed like old girlfriends." When You Believe won an Academy Award for Best Song. The two of them were pretty funny as a duo, and you could tell they had a lot of fun together. They seemed like they really enjoyed each other's company, and they weren't, competing against each other and threatened by each other. They actually supported one another.
Yeah, so she was having a little problem, so what we did was, I went in, not a little problem, one need a rest.
Need a little vocal rest, yes.
Okay, fine.
So
okay.
Whitney went in first.
I went in first,
with
I did my
Babyface.
thing with Face, and then she came in, and we had mapped out stuff, and she came in and she did her thing, and then we kind of played off each other at the end of the song.
The two of them presented an award together at the 1998 MTV Video Music Awards. They walked on stage from opposite sides to present the award for the Best Male Video. And both of them had on the same dress, so you can imagine.
What they told me. Yeah, they told me mine was too, but you know what? What, baby? Fortunately, I come prepared for situations like this. Try it on me! All right.
Because I could do it better.
And at the 1999 Oscars, they performed When You Believe to rapturous applause. Both of them wearing white, because obviously they love to coordinate. And at this time, both of them were at the top of their game. But little did they know that it would soon all fall apart, as both of them would each go through their own personal struggles. By 2001, both Whitney and Mariah had achieved legendary status, with a string of chart-topping singles and studio albums behind them. Clive Davis was ousted from Arista to bring in a younger and fresher L.A. Reid. The label had big plans moving forward, and at the centre of those plans was Whitney. In order to persuade her to stay, after what they did to Clive, they had to come with a huge offer. Arista offered her a contract worth $100 million, making it the largest record contract in history at the time. Whitney received a $25 million advance for 6 albums. Her career seemed set for life. Mariah was also getting ready to sign a huge contract after ending her time with Sony Records. She divorced her ex-husband Tommy Mottola 3 years earlier in 1998. She bought herself out of the contract for a whopping $7 million. She received a lot of offers, of course, and ended up signing with Virgin Records for $80 million. She received full creative control, a reimbursement of the $7 million, and a $21 million advance for 4 albums. Must be nice. Both Mariah and Whitney's deals were historical landmark deals, purely based on who they were as artists and their past success. Record-breaking #1 singles and album sales amounting to millions. The labels had no reason to believe they wouldn't recoup the money in the long run. At the time of signing with Virgin, Mariah was finishing up her first major motion picture, Glitter, and she wrote and produced the soundtrack. Huge numbers were expected, as her fans were super excited about the project. But Glitter grossed $2.5 million in the first week and $5.3 million worldwide. The soundtrack received moderate success, selling 2 million copies worldwide, her lowest sales by far at the time. Both were considered a flop. Mariah began acting oddly, showing up to TRL with an ice cream cart and ranting on promotional appearances.
I just think I'm a human being that's trying to live like everybody else. I don't know what I am other than a person that needs one day, like this is my kind of like my day off.
we're all just living in the moment of being positive, and there's like people called haters. No, Cindy. One more thing. And we give them positivity.
Let's go. Stop.
You see, I can't even get a minute. Bye.
Fans became concerned. She ended up checking herself into rehab, and her therapist said it was due to exhaustion, which caused her to have an emotional breakdown. Till this day, Mariah maintains that the soundtrack for Glitter was actually a good album. Because she was in rehab, the release dates were delayed by about 3 weeks. When the album was eventually released, it ended up coinciding with September the 11th, so the sales of the album were low. But the movie also got brutal reviews and was heavily mocked. Some even wondered if Mottola was behind it all and had caused her to be blacklisted in the industry. Virgin had a change of ownership. The new label head terminated Mariah's contract and paid her $28 million as an exit fee. Even at her lowest point, she was still commanding $28 million. Almost 2 decades later, Mariah would reveal that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. In 2018, she said, "I lived in denial and isolation and in constant fear someone would expose me. It was too heavy a burden to carry, and I simply couldn't do that anymore. I sought and received treatment. I put positive people around me, and I got back to doing what I love, writing songs and making music." Whitney's deal was also severely impacted by her personal struggles. She began cancelling shows, delaying recording sessions, and not showing up for appearances. Rumours about her drug use, being unprofessional, and erratic behaviour tarnished her reputation. When Just Whitney was released in 2002, it sold reasonably well in the beginning, but turned out to be modest overall, especially in comparison to her past sales. It sold 2.5 million worldwide, and around this time it was a completely new era in music. People had begun downloading music illegally, and a lot of artists were suffering at the time financially. A year after releasing Just Whitney, she begrudgingly did a phone interview with Wendy Williams. When Wendy asked her about Mariah, she referred to Mariah as her little lamb chop.
Mariah Carey was on the show and said that she loves you more than ever.
I love that little lamb chop.
She still had love for Mariah and likely felt compassion towards her after she went through her breakdown a couple of years earlier. Whitney went through her own divorce in 2006 and appeared on Oprah, declaring that she was heading in a new direction. And damage to her voice around this time was evident as she struggled to hit the high notes and sing the way she usually sang. Her vocal coach, Gary Katona, who worked with Whitney around 2005, said he helped get her voice back around 75 to 85%. But then she would go off and return to her old ways, damaging her voice again. Both Mariah and Whitney made epic comebacks at certain points during their careers.
Oh, damn. The club about to close in a minute. Can I get your number, baby?
In 2005, Mariah released The Emancipation of Mimi. The album went diamond, selling 10 million copies. This was when she had signed to Island Def Jam. L.A. Reid was the head of the label at the time, so he had had the pleasure of working with both of them. Mariah was nominated for 7 Grammys and won 3. Whitney's 2009 album, Look to You, reached number 1. She worked with Alicia Keys, Swiss Beats, Stargate and David Foster, and R. Kelly. It was her 4th number 1 album, the first since The Bodyguard in '92. The album went platinum. Sadly, I Look to You would become Whitney's last album.
Paramedics raced to the 4th floor and found a lifeless Whitney Houston inside her hotel room bathtub. They tried in vain to resuscitate her with CPR.
At 3:55 p.m. this afternoon, Whitney Houston was pronounced dead at the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
Following Whitney's death in 2012, Mariah attended her funeral in her hometown of Newark, New Jersey. On Good Morning America, just days after Whitney's death, Mariah said, "I'm almost incapable to be talking about this still. I don't think people could ever really understand our relationship. There was always this supposed rivalry in the beginning, and then we did the duet and became friends. I loved her. Her legend's going to go on forever." In 2019, Mariah told Variety, "We didn't know each other, and she was one of the greatest of all time. And then we finally did a duet together that won an Oscar. We had the best time working together. It was female camaraderie. We both got it. We were like, she doesn't hate me. We're actually having a great time together. And this is more fun than I have working alone, ever. So I think camaraderie with women you respect is a huge deal. And she told Billboard, working with Whitney was an experience I will never forget. It was a bonding experience. We really put all the rumours and nonsense behind us, that there was a feud. Mariah also said that the industry tried to make Whitney into something she wasn't, and it broke her. She was a real person with actual feelings, where they tried to make her just this, glossy image. Whitney faced criticism from those in the black community. Reverend Al Sharpton was one of them. She was booed at the Soul Train Music Awards 2 years in a row. It's believed it was Reverend Al Sharpton who coined the phrase, Whitey Houston. I don't know why he spoke at her funeral, to be honest, but I know that was many years ago, so I'm sure the family had forgiven him. Her mother said that some audiences would actually chant it. Whitney herself said, sometimes it gets down to if you're not black enough for them, or you're not R&B enough. Even a former executive, Kenneth Reynolds, admitted that if they got a song for Whitney that sounded too black, they would send it back. Mariah also faced pressure to, quote unquote, prove her blackness.
I mean, I don't see how I'm not claiming my blackness. I mean, obviously by saying that my father is black and Venezuelan, that's saying that I'm black and Venezuelan, you know what I mean? But my mother is Irish, so I'm Irish, Venezuelan, and black, so I don't understand why I'm supposed to only say I'm one thing. I'm a multiracial person, and that's what I consider myself, and I don't consider myself one of the many elements that comprise who I am.
They had much more in common than the press would have us believe. They wanted them to be enemies, but instead, a true friendship was born. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below. I read the comments. Like and subscribe for weekly videos. And don't forget to click the bell for more.